I feel pretty free. I'll tell you what. I'm free.
I'm
freed
too.
of the yoke of...
Listen, don't talk about my baby Tommy like that. What?
Listen, Tommy goes boom.
You better.
I'm actually kind of looking forward to the texts when you read this manuscript. Everybody, Jen does not read my manuscript.
I don't.
I'm like the only person
I know.
for whom
so
she
true.
does not beta read. And that is because I like her not to know how the sausage is made.
I know how everybody else's sausage gets made, but not
So
theirs.
she does get it early, but she gets it hopefully at a form where she's not thinking with her editorial brain.
I'm thinking with my like whatever is inside me that just like cannot wait. Like that gif of that little girl who's just like about to explode with excitement. That's me.
So Imogen and Tommy, you guys, are revised. They have been written. They have been revised. They are now being copy edited. And when that is done, Jen will get to read the book. And then on August 22nd, you all will get to read the book. So you can pre-order now wherever books are sold.
Amazing.
So it begins McLean shilling.
You know what? Listen, hey, I'm an editor for hire. Hire me. So now we both shilled. Welcome to Fated Mates, everyone.
I'm Sarah McLean. I read romance novels and I write them.
And I'm Jennifer Prokop, a romance reader and editor.
And this week we're talking about a favorite.
Yeah, well, wait. Can we talk about this?
We have so many things.
Listen, I have a long list of things.
I know. Well, now
discuss.
we can actually get back to banter.
Yeah, yes.
Okay, first of all, wait. Most importantly, new Ted Lasso next week.
Oh my gosh, I can't even wait.
Everyone, Roy Kent returns. Everyone's like, oh, Ted Lasso.
That was like, 8 more days. And I was like, oh my God. Or however many it is. And I am very
Football is
excited.
life.
Football is life. I'm a little worried because, nailing the third book in a trilogy can be tough, but I believe in Ted Lasso.
I know, delivering on the end. I'm a little sad because I feel from all of the announcements from the cast and the crew that this is in fact it.
Yeah,
like they are
right.
done.
Yeah.
As intended. But I am very happy because at the same time, I feel like I've really struck up a very sort of unique and niche friendship with your brother, Eric.
Yes.
Who joined us in season whatever for our first Roy Kent episode to talk about how Ted Lasso is great. As a soccer fan, I would like to just say Trent Krim looks like a real fucking snack.
The best was there was a scene, like people, people who I appreciate the keen eye of the people who watch these trailers.
And then frame by frame.
And there was one that was like, okay, so Nate's a bad guy. Tell me about this assistant coach. Did you see that one?
Oh, yeah, because he's very handsome.
Yes. It was amazing. So
I have always been, kind of not cool. I realize that that's very difficult for everybody listening to this podcast to imagine. But in the sense that, like, when everybody's watching Game of Thrones, I'm not watching Game of Thrones. Like,
yeah.
I came to Mad Men like 4 years later and was like, this is a great show. And everyone was like, we're done with that now. Right? So
we've moved on.
What I love, honestly, is being really like in it. Here I am in the heart of it.
Well, and you know me, when it comes to TV shows, I'm never that. So.
I'm just as excited as everyone else on Ted Lasso Twitter.
Yeah, no, it's very exciting.
Listen, I know that this is the one thing, this is where Jen and I part ways as fated mates. But like, I really am Ted, Rebecca endgame, and I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait to see how this all turns out.
I don't know that I'm against it, but I wouldn't care if it didn't happen.
I'm not going to be mad if it doesn't happen. Right. But like, do I want to see two handsome people smash? Yeah. Also, that church episode last
it was so
season
good.
Where it was so clear that the two of them had basically like had like the same kind of trauma and at the same time.
Yeah.
Fated mates.
Speaking of handsome people smashing, how about this Apple TV movie with Chris?
We should just do it. We should be an Apple. We're now an Apple podcast. Hey, Steve Jobs, sponsor us.
He's dead, Sarah.
I know. What's his name? Tim Kaine, sponsor us. Not Tim Kaine either. Tim Cook. I got there, everyone.
They're going to look down at the list. I actually am curious about this technology. So if anyone knows how this works, let me know. How do they know that we are explicit every week? Like, I'm really curious.
We tag ourselves. Jen.
Oh, is that how it works?
Eric
Because
tags
I was like, how do they know? Is there
I
some
know.
filter that's like, oh, she said fuck?
Because there have been these discussions about whether or not we should be cleaner on the Ted Lasso episodes so that maybe
Yes.
Apple would then promote those Ted Lasso episodes to the world. And
Yeah.
I say, hell no, we have our people. We have a very specific audience and we write for it.
Yes, that's exactly. There's no point chasing someone else's audience.
Let everyone else come or not come, everyone.
This new Apple movie coming out in April is called Ghosted.
It is my pure, it is like if they distilled my full id
right into
a movie, it would be this.
The only thing I really worry about, I will be honest, is I'm not quite sure that Andy has enough. Like at some point, all of this.
Andy Christopher?
Yeah, like too much Chris is gonna maybe.
Too many Chris's.
Yeah, is she gonna be able to handle it, right?
Too many Chris's. The story, it's the Andy Christopher story.
I don't remember this guy's last name.
It's in her name. Name is destiny.
Yeah, Chris. Which Chris is this? Chris Pine.
This is Chris Evans.
Chris Evans, right, sorry. I mean,
he's difficult to see for me, but I did see him in this trailer. And the reason why is because he plays a very good boy.
Yes. He's like, it's a romantic gesture. It looks terrific.
Who seems like a really sweet guy who meets a girl who seems like a very nice girl. And they have a really lovely time. And he's clearly a hopeless romantic because he says she could be the one. And he tells his parents all about her.
And they're like, you met her once. Like, what's up with you?
Calm down. But then she ghosts him. And instead of him being like, oh, bummer, he flies to London to find her, which
he keeps saying, it's a romantic gesture.
It is in film and books. Don't do this in real life, gentlemen, if you're listening. If you've come to us through the Ted Lasso episode.
Yes.
It's not it.
Exactly.
However, and then he gets there, and then he gets sort of kidnapped and wrapped up in a thing, and it turns out she's a CIA agent. And it's bad news bears from there on out.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's going to be awesome and exciting.
And there are a lot of beautiful people doing beautiful blowing up of things.
My entire brand.
And so Jen and I are in. We're going to use that special. There's a special Apple tool where you can watch things at a distance.
At the same time.
That's what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to be together when this comes out. Because we're going to be together in New York. Look at me. Look at me. Segueing.
You're right back in your game.
I am. I'm back. Faded Meets Live, everyone. March 24th in Brooklyn, New York. Jen and I, Adriana Herrera, Andy Christopher, Joanna Shoup, Mila Finelli, and new to the program, Tessa Bailey.
Super excited.
Very exciting. We're all going to be live on stage at the William Vale Hotel, in which we're told is very nice.
Well, I don't know.
Everybody I say it to is like, oh, that's nice.
Well, here's the funny part. So one of my all-time favorite students is named Julia, and she's like 30 now. But, I taught her when she was 13, and she and her husband lived in Lower Manhattan, and now they're in like Singapore. And every once in a while, we'll just like text. I'll be like, how are you doing? What's going on? I'm so proud of her. She's a school counselor now. Anyway, and so I was like, yeah, we're doing Faded Mates Live at the William Vale Hotel. And she was like, ooh, she said, that's a scene. And I was like, oh, dear.
I mean, we're 40-some-odd-year-old ladies. We're ripe for a scene.
You know what I keep thinking about?
Oh, God.
I really keep thinking about how are we going to vet the bartenders?
Oh, my God.
These are going to be two people in the room who really have going
they're
in
coming in blind.
Yeah. I mean, I just feel like, so that'll be interesting and exciting. I think you're going to have to all be
really kind to the bartenders, everyone.
And then reporting back.
But most importantly, if you're listening to this and going, well, I like a scene and I like Jen and Sarah and I like bartenders who are...
And I like being in New York for the weekend.
Ambushed. You can get tickets. There are a handful of them left.
Yeah.
We just released, actually, this week, an extra block of tickets, the final block, because we had held it back for lots of reasons. Now we are releasing it to you. So there are maybe 25 more tickets as of today. And have at it. Have at it, team. Also, we are giving a present to the person who comes the furthest. So
Yes.
if you are, say, Julie in Singapore,
Sure.
you
Julia,
could win a prize.
come back and see me. It would be amazing.
It's going to be great. We're super excited.
Super excited.
So that's that. Is that all the banter we have for our people?
I think so. Okay, so this week's topic, everyone, is masquerades.
Masquerade.
I almost can't believe we haven't done it before.
I know. Well, you just said to me earlier that you like musicals. You must like The Phantom of the Opera.
So I've been thinking a lot about the Phantom of the Opera lately, and here's why.
Is it because of Gerard Butler?
No, has nothing to do with Gerard Butler, believe it or not. You know how you somehow stumble across something that's like several years old, but you've never seen it before? So I was listening to Kelly Clarkson, and I was listening to like a Spotify playlist. I was like, this is Kelly Clarkson. And there was a really beautiful version of, was it All I Ask of You? Is that the name of
Oh, that's the ballad.
Yeah, with
Sure.
her and Josh Groban.
Oh, who is, terrific. I'm about to see Josh Groban in Sweeney Todd this week.
Who's terrific. And it's really beautiful. And it was funny because as I was listening, there's this one line in that song where it's, okay, I'm like spacing out on the line, right? Like I'm kept to singing in my head, but it's basically like, anywhere you go, like, let me go too. And I was like, this is the high I am chasing in every romance novel. The way that line makes me feel.
Yep.
So I listened to it a couple times. I put it on a playlist I have, which is called Mood Mellow, which I really like, which like chills me out ever so slightly. And I was thinking about the Phantom of the Opera, and you know what? That's a really weird fucking play.
Yes, it is.
Like, how was
But it's also a book, too, isn't it? Isn't it based on a book?
I don't know. I'm sure.
People are yelling at their radios right now.
But like,
their car
seriously,
radios.
when you think about it, you're like, how is this? But I was also thinking, there was
it's a retelling of that Disney movie. Not a Disney movie. The Hunchback of Notre Dame, isn't it?
I was going to say the Hunchback. Sure.
I mean, isn't it like the same basic story?
Sure.
I guess not really.
I think so, whatever. But I was thinking also about, a movie I loved also from around that time when the Phantom of the Opera was ascendant was Amadeus, right? About Mozart.
That movie is such a fucking banger.
Yeah.
It's so great.
It's so good. And I was thinking the whole part where he is like basically like dressing in the domino with like, trying to convince him he's insane.
Yes.
So I kind of feel like maybe you and I are steeped in this masquerade business because of like some big pop culture things. Yeah. Right? From when we were teenagers.
So Phantom of the Opera came out when we were teenagers, when I was like in middle school.
Yeah.
So that was the early 90s.
Yeah.
Which was when I think I was reading these giant historicals that were doing masquerades.
Yeah.
Because honestly, when we picked this topic, I was like, yes, obviously, I can name 12 masquerade books without even thinking. And then, of course, I had that thing that we always do where I'd never read a book before.
Yes.
And then I was like, no, but really, where's the masquerade that installed the following buttons? And I have several of them.
Sure. I think this is the fun part, right? Because it's like, what are the different levers it presses?
Yeah.
There's like Dreaming of You.
I mean, it's for sure Dreaming of You.
Sure, right?
Except in Dreaming of You, there is a missing piece. That is not the full button for me.
Yeah. Okay.
So, okay, you guys, we're not going to spend any time talking about Dreaming of You on this, but obviously, because it's not a Dreaming of You podcast.
Not unless it's February 4th.
You guys, also, I've noticed that a bunch of people blocked us on Twitter, and I'm pretty sure it's because we talk too much about Derek Craven. That's what I said to Jen this week. Or they just think we're annoying.
Some people don't love joy. What do you want me to do?
I don't know what to say. This is because I'm not on Twitter anymore. So now when I go on Twitter, I'm on the Fated Mates account, which I'm sure drives Jen slightly crazy because I'm like fucking with our notifications.
Like, Sarah's not on Twitter, except she secretly is on Twitter.
So
Twitter right now is so broken that who the fuck knows what's going on.
Yeah. Derek Craven. We're not going to talk about Derek Craven, but there is a masquerade in Derek Craven. But what does not happen in that masquerade in Derek Craven is the one thing that I think is the most important, is the deepest install for me. which is he knows it's her immediately.
Yeah.
Or, I mean, she knows it's him immediately, but really it's the other way around for me.
Right. Yeah, because Dreaming of You really plays with that. Instead, he doesn't recognize
He
her.
really doesn't know.
Matilda.
So there are two kinds of masks. So here's where let's begin. There are, I think, 3 buckets that these books fall in. One bucket is what I will refer to as the 50 Shades throwaway.
Yes.
Okay. Where there is a masquerade, but who the fuck cares?
Yeah. It's just like,
where do we send these characters for this next scene? I know it'll be a masquerade because that's sexy. For sure. But everyone knows who everyone else is. It's not a surprise. Then there's the mask is involved and no one knows who it is.
Right.
And by no one, I mean the other heroes / heroine. The protagonist.
The other love interest, right.
Yeah, the protagonists do not know who is behind the mask. And then there is a mask and the protagonists absolutely know who is behind the mask. Corollary.
Yeah.
And they don't say that they know, which is great. There's also, and they say they know, which is a separate thing.
I also enjoy neither of them know and they fucking hate each other.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one, too.
That's a good one, too, right?
So now we're at 5. I was wrong. It's not 3, it's 5.
You can do whatever you want with Masquerade. That's why. Unless you're Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman and Eyes Wide Shut, that was not good.
A very unsettling movie for me.
I actually have a working theory. Would you like to hear it?
Yes, please, always. I love your theories.
The reason Masquerades kind of like died.
Oh, because of
that movie. I really do. I think like it was all pushing towards this moment, and then it was like, oh,
and then it was like, oh, Kubrick, you ruined it.
Yeah. So that's my theory. And then like I think it's slowly coming back. But yeah, that's my theory.
Okay, so
also I think Sia is maybe bringing it back
because of her hair.
I mean, I just think it's really nutty the way like you don't ever see her face, and like we saw her in concert. Have I told you this story? And she like stood in the back of the stage and sang, and then other people were up like doing stuff on stage.
Oh my god, that's kind of great.
It was awesome. It was fantastic.
It's like some real Thomas Pynchon shit.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
and
listen, I don't even know if Thomas Pynchon can write a good book. I'm just fascinated by him.
Yeah.
Like I've read several Thomas Pynchon books. I'm not going to say all because, who knows. But yeah, I'm fascinated by him.
Yeah.
Because no one knows what he looks like.
Yeah. And that was it. So it was just like this really like, and Mr. Reed Romitz was like, we should go see Sia. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, I think it's going to be real weird and real fun. And it was.
That's super fun. I wish I had known that. You should have told me that because I would totally do that with Eric.
Yeah. Well, if she ever comes back, it was real wild.
She's also not as young as one imagines.
Yeah. Well, she can join the podcast then.
No.
All right. Fine. That's fine.
We'll get Sia as an opener for Fated Mates.
Yeah, exactly. Sia, come on over.
This week's episode of Fated Mates is sponsored by Cassie Mint, author of The Stranger.
Speaking of masquerades, Sarah.
A masquerade book.
It's a masquerade book, and it's a contemporary, which is terrific.
I love it.
We only had that one. So check this out. Sophia Morales is, she's got this man she has her eye on.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure you're shocked to hear all about it. His name is Beckett Yates.
Uh-huh.
The problem is that Beckett is her brother's arch rival.
What?
And so they can't be together, but once...
Not unless they're wearing masks.
Exactly. Once a year at a masquerade ball, she gets to like spend the night in his arms. He doesn't recognize her. We love that. She knows it's him. He has no idea. So they just like dance the night away. And because she knows if he knew who she was, he would not want anything to do with her. So she's just like, I'll be the mysterious stranger. I'll have this one night every year. But...
oh boy, it's gonna get messy.
Exactly. So if you are all about insta-love, brother's rival, forbidden romance, secret identity, then you should definitely check out The Stranger.
You can get The Stranger in ebook from Amazon or with a monthly subscription to Kindle Unlimited. Or, as always, you can find it in print wherever you get your print books. Thanks to Cassie Mint for sponsoring this week's episode.
one of my favorite Masquerade books is a contemporary. And I would like you to admire me for that.
Oh, now that's something. Why don't we begin there?
Okay, it is not 50 Shades of Grey. Although,
Or no,
yeah, no, I don't really want to talk about it, except that, like, in the movie, I don't know, has anybody ever noticed, like, the scene in the movie before where he puts in the Benoit balls or whatever, and she's wearing this beautiful lingerie? It's gorgeous. And then in the next scene, she has this, like, really sexy, slinky silver dress on.
It's a silk dress.
Yeah.
You can't wear lace
and the
corsetry.
whole, like, neckline. I was like,
well, my problem
wearing
with that
underwear for no reason.
Listen, since we're in it now. My problem with that scene is that his bow tie, and listen, if you love this movie, fast forward 30 seconds because I'm about to ruin it. You won't unsee this. His bow tie is made for a child. It's tiny wee. In fact, we're probably going to ruin it anyway because I'm going to suggest
I'm going to make
that it be the video.
Yeah, I'm going to make the picture. Listen, I'll ruin anything for anybody. Fine.
Anyway, so, if you're doing this, just make sure you articulate the size of a man's boat.
Yes, right? But yeah, anyway, it's a silly scene, but whatever. Okay, the contemporary I have, and it is really like a favorite book of mine, is called Moonlight Scandals by Jennifer Armentrout. I am sure.
Oh, I love those books.
Yeah, I love these books.
I wish she wrote more contemporary, honestly.
Yeah, I feel like it's like has a real modern Gothic feel, which I feel like enough people don't really fool around with that. There's kind of some ghosts happening, but like this book really like leaned into like the creepy kind of New Orleans, Spanish moss everywhere feeling. So the heroine's name is Rosie, and she is a ghost hunter. And the hero is this, dirtbag billionaire, Devlin de Vincent. And he's the oldest son, and this is like the third book in the series, and you kind of have been waiting for these two to get together. And here's the part that I liked about it. This is like really a book about class differences. And she, every year there's this annual charity masquerade at this like really spectacular French Quarter mansion. And there's like no way to get into this thing if you're just like a regular person.
Right.
But her bestie, it like breaks up with her boyfriend or fiance and so says like, do you want to come with me? I have this extra ticket. And so Rosie gets in, right? And she is so excited. Like she's excited not because it's going to be like a scene, but because this mansion is famously haunted.
Oh, yeah.
And so she's like, I'm going to sneak away from the masquerade and go up there and like see if I can figure out what's going on in this haunted room. It's also really funny. They recognize each other, so it doesn't have quite but he's like, what are you doing here? Like, are you stalking me or whatever? And there's this really funny line where she thinks most men were, she's like, he's so handsome. And most men were handsome when they wore a mask. And it just like made me laugh. So anyway.
But that's not incorrect. Listen, see also beards.
Yes.
Because Eminem, very different. With and without the beard. So, it's all.
Yeah. So she sneaks upstairs and he is like, what's she doing? She's this, what's she up to? And he follows her. And then, of course, they almost have sex in the haunted room. And it's terrific. And I just thought it was like a really effective. I really love this book. I just love the vibe of it. And I really love, like, he is such a stick in the mud and she is like a really free-spirited. And I don't even know if I would call it like grumpy sunshine exactly, but there is a way in which the chemistry between these two is just very spectacular. And I love the masquerade as being this like moment where like they really see each other, right? Instead of it being them hiding from each other. And it's real hot, and they almost make out in a haunted room, a haunted New Orleans mansion.
Amazing. Listen, no notes.
No notes.
That's right. Are there ghosts in that moment?
I believe they're interrupted by some strange doings on, but I don't.
Nice.
That's good.
I like it. Well, listen. So here's my deal about masks, and I think we've done disguises before, so we've sort of covered a little. We've covered a little ground with masks, but obviously anybody who reads my books knows that I love a disguise. Like I love a double identity. I like every single one of my series has somebody in disguise, and that is because romance is fundamentally about identity.
Yes,
it is about who we feel we are in the world, who we feel the world believes us to be, and who we are authentically with whoever it is that we
fall in love with. Yeah.
Right? We are made better by love. We are made more authentic and more real by love, right? By virtue of being in a partnership. So what I love about the mask on page is the ability of the character to be in hiding and also at the same time in their truest form.
Right.
Right?
Right.
It's also why I love an epistolary novel, right? Because in text, like or in letters, in, text messages, in all of that stuff, you are able to both hide and be authentic. And there's something really powerful about that because masks traditionally are designed for people to be able to remove the strictures of society, right?
Yes.
There's always, I've written many masks in my books. And often I'll do like a costume ball. And like the idea is, you can sort of see Marie Antoinette like sort of like running by with like, I don't know, a person dressed as a farmer or whatever. And who knows who they are. And then, of course, in the traditional and sort of long-standing tradition of regencies and masks at midnight, although it's not just regencies, because isn't this how the Masque of the Red Death goes? Like at midnight, the clock strikes and they take their masks off.
Right.
And like reveal who they are, and who you've been dancing with, who you've been flirting with, who. There's something really magical about the idea that something so simple could literally change.
Yes.
The way
you see everything, right?
You see and are seen. So, but I want to talk about, since you started with contemporary, I want to talk about Kristen Callahan's Firelight, which is not contemporary. It is like steampunk. Her Darkest London series is a steampunk series. It is
so
great. If you have ever thought about steampunk is the kind of merging of like a kind of futuristic technology with a historical vibe. Is that how we would describe somebody who is steampunky? But like the technology looks like it's from the past, but it's kind of from the future. Often they're like leather goggles and shit, but they like let you. They give you X-ray vision, right? Like it's sort of a kind of
it's an interesting thing, right? Yeah.
And I actually don't know very much about steampunk. I don't know where it comes from, or and there are obviously many, many authors who write steampunk, and many, many, like there's so much steampunk fic, and there's lots out there. And someone out there is saying like, Sarah, you're such an idiot. You're describing it all wrong. And please correct us and we'll, fix it. But Kristen wrote this really great series, Darkest London. It's like gothic, steampunky. Each of the heroines in this series has a gift. It's elemental. So, one of them can move metal, and one of them has like, can control water, and Miranda can control fire. And this is really valuable when you're talking about a city that's basically made of wood and is gonna burn. It's set in London.
Bad.
Like so fire's bad, and she can manage it. And so the hero is Lord Benjamin Archer, and he lives his whole life behind a mask, a literal mask, because he has he was in a fire. He was scarred by fire, and he like has this, and so he wears a mask a la Phantom of the Opera. In fact, like very similar, clearly inspired by Phantom of the Opera. So he is, the way that this whole series is set up is there is always a curse. It is often a curse that is on the hero. The hero sort of is broken in some way and cursed. And the heroine's magic is required in order for him to survive in many cases and also thrive. Here's the problem. Miranda has no interest in getting married. She has no interest in being attached to this guy who, it doesn't matter at all to her that like he's masked. What matters to her is that he's a fucking asshole. So,
yes.
But he can't help himself. He senses that she has this power. He believes that this power can ultimately impact himself, his family, his world, and he steals her, a la Phantom of the Opera, to a la Beauty and the Beast. Like it's very classic.
Yeah.
He's cursed. He lives his life like masked and tucked away from the world. He steals her to essentially use her gift and to manifest love to manifest like all the things that he desires in the world.
That series
and
is so
what
good.
he gets is love. And then it tees up, the best thing about this book is it tees up the rest of the series.
Yeah, and they're kind of like, there's like a big bad guy or something. I can't really quite remember, but they're definitely like, it's almost like a little paranormal, like,
it is.
Investigator
All steampunk
kind of vibe,
is
right?
paranormal, right, in some way. And in this particular case, because they all have special powers, it really does feel this way. But this one has like magic, demons. There is like a secret society. There's and then like what's fascinating is as they progress, you can see Kristen being more and more confident about taking the finger. So as it moves forward, the partnerships become less and less viable in the sense that like, by the book 3, I think it is like, the heroine has literally put a curse on the hero that is killing him. And she is able to move metal, and her, like literally he needs her to be with him to survive, even though they fucking hate each other. So it's just a great series, start to finish. If you're looking for something really different, I feel like right now that's how I'm feeling about reading is like, I want the different stuff. Like if you were looking for Undertaking of Heart and Mercy, like at the end of the year last year, try this series, Darkest London, because it'll do the job. Really, and it begins with a masked hero, which is pretty great.
I was really diving into Witch of the Maiden Lane series by Elizabeth Hoyt.
I have one on my list too.
So this whole series really plays with this, because a lot of the heroes or heroines are essentially like out on the street, like doing not crimes, but like kind of like superhero type stuff, right? Like, and they're being masked as they like go out, like Winter Makepeace. Right?
Well, there's a mask. It's basically so when she pitched a series originally, like back in the day, a million years ago, she pitched to all of us. It was announced as Batman, but make it Victorian.
Yeah.
Or not Victorian, it's set in the 1700s. So
yeah, that one is
whatever that is.
The one from Winter Makepeace is Thief of Shadows, right? So he's like by day,
Isn't he a priest?
Something like he like
Vicar.
runs an orphanage or something. He runs an orphanage or something,
Yeah.
And then at night he's out, being Batman. So
but the character shifts over the course of the
like
series.
It's almost like
What's
how
his
like
name?
there's a different James Bond or whatever. It's like that. I don't remember.
I don't remember the name of the character.
Duke of Pleasure, though, there's an actual masquerade. And that one is with Hugh and Elf.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that is like this one kind of plays up into is they're kind of essentially going to go undercover and, do some catting around or whatever. And she, for a lot of the book, has been dressed like a boy. Right? And so this is the first time he sees her in like a spectacular gown. So it really, plays into that.
I love it.
He's never seen her before, the way he sees her.
But he does know it's her.
Yeah, well, they go together, right? And so it's like kind of like no one will ever recognize you because you'll be dressed, like in full
like a
gown,
lady.
like a lady. So plays around with that whole thing.
I love it.
But yeah, I would just say in general, I think that whole entire series is really doing some work with masks and masquerades and all that stuff.
Well, so I didn't have I said I had a maiden lane. I didn't have a maiden lane. I do have an Elizabeth Hoyt.
Okay.
Because I think Elizabeth, God, she can really write.
Yeah.
And when I found her, I mean, that's The Raven Prince is my book. And it is the book that I think of as, it's maybe the book that sort of inspired me to write romances, as a
like a real
grown
thing.
up. Like when I was a grown up, like when I read that, I thought, oh, you can do it this way. And I'm not saying that Elizabeth and I are read-alikes, but I think that we both come to the texts with a sensibility of like being really interested in darkness.
Yeah.
In a way that like prior to Elizabeth coming on the scene, like there were that those characters didn't really exist a ton outside of somebody like Derek Raven, right?
Yeah.
Like, and what she started to do was really dig into kind of the site. Her characters have like a really, in many ways, I mean, we are not the same in this way, but her characters have very traumatic experiences that they are working through. Her heroes are brick walls, that have to be torn down.
Yeah.
The Raven Prince, which I don't know if it's her debut, but it is remarkable, and I've always thought of it as her debut.
Yeah.
Is the first in the Prince series. There are 3. It's like the Raven Prince, the Serpent Prince, the Leopard Prince. Her hallmark is that she tells a fairy tale over the course of a book in these books.
Yes.
And the fairy tale always like kind of vaguely represents something that's going on in the book. But the Raven Prince has a very cruel hero, a really classic old school hero.
Yes.
So, and his name is the Earl of Swardingham, and he's terrifying. He's run off a bunch of secretaries, who at the time were men. But like no one wants to work for him because he's terrible. He's really mean. And he's really cold, and he's very exacting, and he expects a very certain kind of thing from his secretaries, and he can't keep one. There's a widow in the village that is on his land. She needs money, and she needs money bad. And she decides that she is going to apply to become the Earl's secretary. And when she goes and meets him, there's sort of a back and forth and a mistakes, like a little bit of a miscommunication, and then boom, she's his secretary. She is immediately drawn to him, and she knows, and she discovers through the course of her secretarying that he is a member of a very notorious sex club in London.
Of course.
And he called Aphrodite's Grotto.
Of course.
And is there a better name for a sex club?
No.
I defy you to find one. So she's like, well, I'm a widow, and like, I know what sex is, and I have needs. And also, I would like to ride this horse. Amazing. And so she goes to Aphrodite's Grotto in a sort of kind of alternate universe way to Sarah from Suddenly You. Like, she goes there and she's like, I want to experience this. She goes to the madam of the brothel and she says, I want to do this and I want to be with him. And the madam's like, are you sure? And yes. And she puts on a mask and that makes her invisible to him.
Yes.
And she goes into the room, and he is sitting in a chair in the corner of the room, and it is one of the hottest sex scenes ever in my head because it is so intense. And he doesn't know who she is.
I love it when they don't know.
See it.
And then
he can't
write
see
that
it.
real. I mean, it's like I can't believe we haven't mentioned Cinderella yet, right? Like,
Right.
so she's going to take off, and then it's like, where is she? I got to find her. Oh, I love
It's
that.
so great. Because then he's like obsessed with her.
Yeah.
And he's like, I have to get back to her, right? Like I have to find her again.
Yeah.
And so they meet again and again and again. And her rule is like, you can't take my mask off. And it's so hot because it breaks you as a reader as it is breaking her. She is a widow secretary. She cannot marry an earl. Like she cannot be a countess.
No.
And simultaneously, this is all happening. Like then they're also kind of like weirdly falling for each other in real life.
Yeah.
Which is making me think, Jen, that I think part of how this button was installed for me, and this is a different episode, is also highwaymen.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Of course. Oh,
like we should do a highwayman episode. We should just read The Raider. Do you remember The Raider?
Oh, God.
Where he's jealous of himself. Listen.
There is nothing better than
he's jealous of himself is my like full catnip.
Yeah, it's true. I feel like there was so much, it's funny when you look back and you kind of think like, what were those big sweeping arcs? And I feel like there was so much like Masquerades and Highwaymen and, like my real identity is hidden. This stuff's so good.
Mm-hmm. I mean, because now what we say is like, oh, it's so dramatic and like, no, it's so unbelievable. Like, no,
it's delicious. It was amazing.
No one wants to hear that.
I want some more. My bowl.
Exactly. So anyway, that's the Elizabeth Hoyt section of the podcast.
Okay, so Erica Ridley, historical romance author Erica Ridley, has an entire series, the Rogues to Riches series. And I think I've not read all of them, but some of them, and I think all of them kind of at some point take place at this one, feckless aristocrat has a weekly masquerade ball. Like this guy is really down.
Nice.
And he is hosting every week this masquerade ball. And so because I have no fear, went and dove right in at number 7 of 7, which is Lord of the Masquerade, which is when the guy who is running the masquerades finally falls in love, right?
Uh-huh.
Like, I'm just like, I'm going to start at the end, everybody. I know some of you out there are like, no, I have to read in order. I'm sorry for you. So in this book, Lord of the Masquerade, which I don't know if you've ever read an Erica Ridley book, they're quite propulsive. Like, I think she really knows the job and you just like get right into it.
Yep.
The name of the aristocrat is the Duke of Lambley. And he essentially, the book opens with him, essentially like, so here's what, it's so great, honestly. Everyone at the masquerade comes in, in a mask. And when they are greeted, they are, it's like Madam X or Lord X, right? So it's like they'll come and the thing is like they all enter and are announced like they would be, right? But it's like Lord X. And everyone's like cheering, and that's like Lady X. So, like all of the pomp and circumstance, but none of the, like everybody's hidden except for Lambley himself. He is the only one who ever just like walks around with his face out.
And tell me he does not ever match with anyone.
So he will like hit it with people, but it's like, like a
but it's never like
it's never
serious.
Until
tell me about her, Jen.
Her name is Unity Thorne, and she is a makeup artist. It's great. She's a makeup artist.
What a cool idea.
Yeah, so she's a makeup artist at like a London theater, and she has actually helped 2 different men turn their like businesses into successes. But she doesn't, the first guy really fucked her over and she didn't get a part of it. The second guy was like, I'm going to pay you out because you did all this work for me. But she's like, I'm tired of helping these men. I have my great own idea for my own masquerade club. What her whole idea is like, I'm going to like build it myself. It'll be like these masquerade like kind of rooms. if people will want to come, but she's like, I kind of need to see the best of it to like get some ideas. So she like walks herself up to the front door of the Duke of Lamley's house, knocks on the door. And the butler opens and is like, hello, may I help you? And she's like, I'm here to see the Duke. And he's like, may I have your card? And she's like, snap. And she just like walks away. She doesn't have a card.
Right.
She's like, I don't know what's going on. Okay.
I love it.
Like, right. And the whole time she's like, Lamley won. And he like doesn't even know she exists. The second time around, she goes to the back of the house and she's like, I'll get a job as a maid. Right. She knocks on the door and she's like, I'm here for a position. And they're like, we don't have any positions open. And she's like, what? Like, what kind of household doesn't have positions open? Right. So she is like the whole thing is so great. So she basically finally gets in to see the Duke and tells him, let me like just like kind of observe and I'll tell you if you are missing anything. And he's basically like, what do you mean if I'm missing anything? It's perfect. Like, the masquerades are perfect. But he loves her little eye and she's asking him all these questions. And so anyway,
I love it.
It's terrific. And I feel like now I could go back and probably scoop up 6 more masquerades while I'm at it. So it was really, really, really fun.
I love it.
Yeah.
I feel like we have to talk about Joanna Shupe's The Bride Goes Rogue.
Yes.
Which is delightful because the hero and heroine of in classic Joanna fashion. So this one, the heroine, Catherine, is like in her mid-20s and she's sort of like delightful. She's flighty and romantic and she has no interest in sort of doing anything that is serious, or she's like Daisy from Great Gatsby, like a beautiful little fool, right? She has absolutely no interest in like getting married, and that's really great because she's been engaged for years, I want to say, to this like hard-hearted, like ice cold, only interested in money, Preston Clark. And Preston, and this is, Joanna Shupe's like pure catnip here, right? It's a great setup. They are supposed to get married, but they're engaged but living totally separate lives. And then they both get invited to a masquerade at Madison Square Garden, which is not a place where the New York Knicks play. The New York Knickerbockers do not play at that Madison Square Garden. They get invited to a Madison Square Garden like masquerade, and they go and they're both masked, and they each meet a masked person who is a fucking delight. He is the pacing of this, the POV of this piece of the book is great because we are in his POV first.
Right. Well, have you said the fact that he breaks up with her and so she's like, fuck it, I'm going to go find myself a man?
No, I didn't say that, but yes.
It's an important part.
So basically, go ahead. So he shows up and he's like, because something happens, like his family loses everything or whatever and he doesn't want anything, and so he agrees to the marriage, and then like he's super rich and is basically like, I don't have to marry her anymore because I don't need her money, right? And so he does break up with her, and she's like, hang on a second, like we had a deal largely that like she doesn't have to really worry about it for a while. And then, so they both go to this masquerade and he gets like one look at her and then like a taste of her like personality, and they like are witty and bantery, and you're in his POV first, and he's like, oh, I want this woman, right? And he's a fucking billionaire tycoon.
Yes.
He's a robber baron. Like when he wants something, he wants it. Like he takes it. It's his. He's like, I want this. And then it switches to her POV and she's like, oh, I want this.
Yeah.
And neither of them know that the other is.
And they smash and it is hot.
It's great.
It is great.
A+ work, everybody.
Well, and then, they're going to go their separate ways.
And then he figures it out that it's her. And it's just like, kaboom.
What is going on? Yeah. McCree Queen.
Everything he thought was true.
Yes.
Is false.
Oh, I love that. That's so good.
And she's like, you are terrible and I hate you. But also I love you and want to smash.
Yeah.
What shall we do? I have lots of club books. I just want to kind of name some club books. Sophie Jordan wrote an entire series set in a club.
Yeah.
It begins with All the Ways to Ruin a Rogue, and then it goes from there, I think. That's the first book, I think. And each one has a club. Everybody's masked in the club. I have written, I don't know how many, honestly, a lot of Masquerade books. But what I will say is that there are two that really deliver on the catnip of my dreams, which is, I hope they deliver on the catnip of my dreams. The first is One Good Earl Deserves a Lover. Mm-hmm. And the second is Daring and the Duke. And both of those have situations where one of them is wearing a mask, thinking they are hiding from the other.
Yes.
In both cases, it is the heroine wearing a mask, thinking that she is hiding from the hero. And he takes one look at her and knows exactly who she is, and then just toys with her. And by toys with her,
is so good.
In Daring and the Duke, I mean, he goes down on her very well in a gazebo for a while.
Yeah. He's like, I have work to do down here.
He's like, I can't take your mask off. No problem.
No problem.
I'll just work down here.
That's so wrong. Oh, my God.
By the way, he's been in love with her for his entire life.
Yeah. Yes. True.
Yeah.
True. I mean, he literally has. Yes.
Yeah. Literally his whole life.
His entire life. Yes, it's true. That's true.
So what else is a man to do?
That's it. That's what you do. Yeah, that was it. It's funny because I was really trying. I think you and I both had the same thought, which was should I try and go back and figure out which Julie Garwood or which Joanna Lindsay or which,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure, 100% sure, for example, that there is one by Jane Ann Krentz and those that
in the rabbit.
Yes.
Yeah.
There must be. I know there is. I can literally picture the mask on the cover. But, it was funny because then I really decided, well, what do these look like now? Right? How does this? And I was really delighted to the Erica Ridley book I read for the episode. And I was really delighted by it because it felt, it's that same thing where it's when you're reviving an old beloved trope, how to make it fresh, how to make it new. And the whole idea of the masquerade, the man who's running the masquerade, finally getting his own HEA at the end. And I also have to say, I do very much appreciate airdropping into a series where I can just pick that one up immediately.
Yep. Well, that is kind of a gift of historicals. Often you don't have to do a ton of work. Probably don't read Daring and the Duke first. I didn't have the clarity about Highwaymen until we were just recording.
Yeah.
But that's definitely it. It's the Raider, probably, for me. And it is ironic because I feel like it should be a masquerade ball that is that, but I actually don't think it is. I think it's literally heroes dressed, masked as criminals, which will surprise absolutely no one.
This is this week's therapy session of Faded Names.
18 books in, I finally figured it out.
I am sort of shocked when we dive into some of these old school tropes. Really the whole thing about installing your buttons. Really I'm oh yeah, this is where
you know why though, Jen?
Yeah.
I mean this is gonna sound so obvious, but romance novels are fucking great. And we have read a lot of them. And they have given us so much joy. Oh God. At times in our life. And I think this is real. I think this is real for people like us who started reading them when we were teenagers, right? Or early, like tweens, right? Where that is a traumatic time of your life.
Yeah.
Right? You start reading romance novels at that point, and the things that give you joy give you such a straight shot of serotonin.
Yes.
That like forever, those are the things you search for.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And I've been thinking a lot about that in light of the number of new romance readers who came to us during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Which was a deeply traumatic, continues to be a deeply traumatic time for so many of us. And the straight shot of joyful serotonin that they are getting is going to be like part of their DNA now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so for us, that serotonin was highwaymen in historicals. For many of these readers, it is like fake dating in 2022. Pick your pleasure.
Yeah, right. Well,
but try highwaymen in historicals.
This Erica Ridley book, I started it. I started the sample because I was like, well, let me see. And then I was like, click. I mean, it completely, I just couldn't put it down. And you know, when you're reading a book and you just like are smiling.
Yeah.
You've got the right?
It's awesome. I love it.
I'm chasing the high of anywhere you go. Let me go too. Like, boom.
Yeah. Well, that's Fated Mates, everyone. We hope you loved us. You can come and see us live if you're in or around New York City, March 24th at the William Vale. Tickets at fatedmates.net/live or check show notes. Thanks to this week's sponsor, Cassie Mint, author of The Stranger. You can find it in ebook at Amazon or with a monthly subscription to Kindle Unlimited. I'm Sarah McLean. I'm here with my friend Jen Prokop. We hope you are reading something that gives you a straight shot of serotonin this week. We always want to hear about it. If you can message us on Twitter at FatedMates or on Instagram at FatedMatesPod or find us on Tumblr, Fated-Mates.
Have a great week, everybody.